Right, time for a look at the markets. Thanks to our partners, Forsyth, Barr, and joining me on the line is Zoe Wallis, investment strategist from Forsyth, Barr. Good morning, Zoe.
Good morning.
Let's start with those, the tariff and trade outlook and the fallout, I suppose, from the news over the weekend. How's that landing?
Yeah, obviously a pretty interesting one. I mean, when you look at net where we are at in terms of tariffs, there's a couple of things, right? So first of all, we're now back to a 15% tariff for most countries. Important to also note that most of the carve-outs that were in place under the IEEPA ones, the previous tariff, sort of broad sweeping tariffs, are actually still in place as well. So that's good news for our beef exporters because there's still a carve-out there. I think probably the other piece, though, is that a couple of countries like the UK and Australia who did have a 10% blanket tariff rate have now gone up to 15. So not such great news for our neighbours across the ditch, unfortunately. The other piece is obviously that these tariffs, that new tariffs that they've put in place, do have an expiry date of 150 days without congressional approval. So how markets are taking that all so far has been a bit up in the air. I think one of the biggest questions remains is actually whether you see the existing tariffs that have been charged from Liberation Day up until the decision last week will actually have to be repaid.
Yeah, that's a big cost, I guess, fiscally as well, and could be lead to all sorts of lending questions as well for the US federal budget. Hey, look, just looking closely here, we've got results season sort of trundling on. What are you keeping an eye on particularly?
Yeah, another busy week, both in New Zealand, Australia, and a few international results that will be of interest as well, including NVIDIA and Salesforce, just given some of the volatility around software services and stocks we've seen over the last couple of weeks. NVIDIA is obviously a big bellwether for global markets, so that'll be a key one around the AI trade. Locally, look, what we've seen to date is that New Zealand reporting season has generally been relatively robust. We're seeing some positive signs coming through after a pretty tough couple of years, starting to see that turning point gain further traction in terms of what we're seeing on the ground. We'll be looking for more evidence of that as we go through this week as well.
Sure. In Australia, I think we've got some more inflation chat coming this week. What are we expecting there?
Yeah, obviously following the Reserve Bank of Australia's decision to hike interest rates in February, that will be a key one out this week. So markets are looking for a small moderation in inflation just down to 3.7% from 3.8%, still well above the midpoint of that 2 to 3% target range that the RBA is aiming for. We've also got a speech out actually from RBA Governor Bullock this week that will also be closely watched, but markets are definitely expecting at least one more rate hike from the RBA.
Yeah, they let it run, didn't they? Zoe Wallis from Forsyth Barr, thank you very much this morning for that market update.